So I think this has been very interesting testimony that we've heard today. So we have too much money chasing too few goods, which has led to inflation, which even the Fed Secretary Jerome Powell in his testimony here acknowledged that inflation was in excess of what we have seen in several decades, although the administration is hoping that it is transitory. And we also know that inflation is an insidious tax and a regressive tax that disproportionately affects people of color, low-income individuals, working families, and seniors on a fixed income. So, Mr. Baker, do you think inflation would have any bearing on the ability of someone to rent or pay their rent, whether there's a pandemic or not?
I am not an economist, and so I cannot speak to.
Okay, thank you very much.
But
in March, I introduced HR.
What I would say is, clearly, a landlord substantially increasing somebody's rent, as Ms. Chisholm highlighted, clearly has a significant impact. And so that's exactly what we've seen. We've seen companies, Pretium I used as an example, right? We've seen other companies. So Invitation Homes is publicly traded. They, they reported in their SEC filings that when there was a switch over to like a new renter that they were.
My question was whether or not inflation would have a bearing on paying rental income. I have mom and pop, individuals, ordinary people, low to middle income who have rented houses, their houses, in my neighborhood, which in Southeast Iowa is the highest rate of unemployment and the lowest wages in the state, who have had challenges and problems, and because we're small communities, they know that they're getting stimulus checks, they know that their renter is getting unemployment, yet not paying rent. So my question, I get that you're not an economist and you can't answer. In March, I introduced H.R. 1897, the REACT Act, which would require the Department of Homeland Security to test all migrants coming across our borders who are released into the U.S. Given that was voted down. Given the increase in rates of COVID-19 with Delta and Lambda variants, it seems fitting that this committee should focus on ensuring testing for more than 1.1 million migrants encountered along the southwest border so far. Yet we don't require this. These individuals come across our border or put on planes or buses taking to communities, and they're placed in facilities which are large facilities, convention centers, and are any of the panelists aware if COVID-19 testing is being required at the border, and if multi-tenant housing owners should require testing before renting and putting their other occupants at risk? Thank you. I would say we should still be testing at the border. Mr. Baker, in your testimony, you stated that you had identified over 75,000 evictions during the CDC eviction moratorium. As we've heard already today, we know the CDC's eviction moratorium is not blanket in nature and does not bar all residential evictions, and the moratorium only applies to monetary defaults. Nonetheless, it's estimated there are 43 million units of rental housing in the U.S. Do you agree with that figure?
Yes.
And eviction notices being filed for are approximately 0.17% of all rental housing units. Is that correct?
That's incorrect. As I mentioned in my statement, we're tracking evictions across a subset, right? And as I mentioned in response to Mr. Foster's question, the data is extremely fragmented, right? And so there's different data across different cities, across different states, and so we have sought to track as many places as possible, but it is absolutely incorrect to do a simple division as you just did. Okay. That's just not the right way to interpret the figure.
But would you say that the data on how many eviction notices resulting in actual displacements is small?
As I said, the data, we need better data in terms of.
So essentially what I'm hearing as I'm here is we're spending our time in a committee discussing an issue that, while it's very important, is only affecting a very small percentage of people, and for which policies have been put in place that may be more constitutionally based. And essentially, we don't have the data to tell us how many displacements. Meanwhile, in a committee that's addressing the Select Coronavirus Task Force, we still don't know the origins of COVID-19, and we have had representatives here suggest that the origins of COVID-19 investigation would be brought up in another committee. And it's important for public health, national security, and also for how our media treats information and where it comes from, that we know the origins of COVID-19, which we still don't have, and a CDC which is now going to ask that people who are doubly vaccinated wear masks. So I think there are important questions that we need to address and policies that should be put in place constitutionally to assist people. Thank you. I yield back my time.